our business has been in the district, in the central districts, for just on 100 years, or in fact 100 years on the 2 years ago. So we're 102 years old.
102 years old. So
that's a family business.
And you took over from your father, you'd say?
Well, no, not really. I branched out into another section of the business because my grandfather started the business, and it's evolved over a period of time because we started at Dunedoo. There were no Dubbo sale yards in those days, and as they are today. But yes, we sort of dispersed a bit, and we were in Trangie and Galargambone and Mudgee and places like that, but we centred on Dubbo.
Now you were here, I believe you sold at the very first sale that took place.
No, I didn't sell. I was only a lad. I was working there that day, but that was on the 28th of June 1950, so it's quite a while ago. And I was just a casual employee on that day, but I started then with the firm, and I've been with the firm for a long time. I've been a stock and station agent now for a long time. Well, of course, everything was different in those days because everything was trucked in by rail, or most things were trucked in by rail, and they trucked out by rail, because after the sale we'd spend half the night then, or mostly sometimes all night, trucking the stock, because it would go mostly east, go down to the Sydney abattoir, and most of the stock, quite a lot of the stock in those days came in by road. They walked in, particularly for people that were close handy around here. They walked their stock in, but the semi-trailers came to bear fairly quickly, and road transport took over. Well, they were all wooden yards, of course, when they first started, built by the Talbragar Shire Council, and it was fairly primitive. We only had small yards. We started then where we finish now. We started down this side and went backwards, so they've changed the pattern of the sale yards as they've come over the years, and they've been added and added and added onto. So yes, I think the rudiments were all there to start with, but they were pretty primitive, and of course the worst feature of it was there was no concrete. So over a period of time, particularly a wet winter, you'd walk into the yards in your gumboots, and you'd walk out of your gumboots. There was that much mud in the place. So at the end of the day, your legs were aching, and you probably went looking for your gumboots.
And out of all of the improvements you would have observed over the years, what would be some of the better ones?
I think the change in selling, very obviously, live weight selling. When it came in, there was a lot of argument about that. The buyers didn't like it. They all didn't want to buy live weight, but they got used to it after a little while, and of course it's changed now. Everything's sold by live weight, or practically everything, and I think that's the biggest change that I can remember. But then there's been a consolidation of the buying people too, because we had in those days lots of local butchers buying their cattle here. Lots of them, and having them killed and sold through the shops. Well, you know, you don't see too many local butchers here now. One perhaps one buys his own meat here and has it killed and sells through his own shop, but that's all become, you know, commercialised. You get the bigger companies, of course, are buying and sending them all over, all up to Queensland and down to Victoria to be killed. So but I think live weight selling is the biggest change and it took us fellas as auctioneers a long time to know how to run it. Yeah. You know, different to sort of saying that a beast is worth, say, $100 to saying it was worth so many cents a kilo.
That's right.
And you had to change the pattern of your auctioneering. Now, I've been in a family of auctioneers all my life, from the day I was born, and I've never seen anything like this. This is just, I don't say double, but it's nearly double the type of thing. Yeah. Because I've sold very good fat cattle here for 13 cents a kilo. Yep. At the end of the 70s. Yep. And some store sales we had, we just couldn't sell the cattle. There was nobody prepared to buy them. They just stopped in the yards here, and we tried to hawk them around all over the place until we found somebody that was prepared to take them. And of course that's the same with the sheep, because you know, we were selling pens of sheep here at one time, pens of sheep for $1, a whole pen for $1. Yep. But at that time, of course, they were shooting sheep to get rid of them. There's been an enormous amount of changes here. Well, when we first started off here, all the cattle, for instance, in the yards were all shorthorn cattle, the whole lot of them.
Yep.
And then eventually we started to see what we call New England cattle that had red bodies and white faces, the Herefords.
Yep.
And then we saw a time when we had a lot of Bosindicus cattle or Bosindicus cross cattle come into the market, but now of course it's predominantly black cattle. The Angus cattle have done a marvellous job. They've promoted their breed very, very well, and they've come to the stage where predominantly when you drive around the country all you see is black cattle. So I think that will continue. The buyers like them, the meat people all want them to sell, and these new Wagyu cattle, they might eventually come up when they get some numbers about them. They might come on the market and be preferred, but I think black cattle will be here for a long time to come. But we do see, as we see here today, lots of Brahman cattle, but we don't see those very often. But when they come, they usually come in a big lick. So they're here today. They've done very well, the council. They've they haven't rushed it, but they've given us the extra facilities as we've needed them. And you know, this is the biggest centre for livestock for cattle in New South Wales by a fair bit. And we sell an awful lot of fat sheep here too, or sheep and lambs. So the facilities are first class. They're getting better. They've rubberised the floor of the cattle yards. Everything's under concrete. We don't have to walk out of our Wellington boots anymore. And generally speaking, I think we've been very, very satisfied with the setup the way it is. The council have done a good job, and they're continuing to do it. As you can see, all these new facilities out here, giving us more space and better ways to display our vendors' cattle. And after all, that's the name of the game. Last week, for instance, to give you an idea of the benefit it is to Dubbo, last Monday and Thursday, there was $16 million worth of stock sold through these sale yards. So they benefit the vendors around the whole area that send in, and of course they provide all this employment. You know, the carriers have got to be engaged to bring the stock in and take them away, and people that are here working, drafting the cattle, and then we have officers here in the office processing it all. So it's a major contributor, I would have thought, to the Dubbo economy. And I think there's probably an awful lot of people in Dubbo that don't know that Dubbo sale yards exist.
Yeah, that's true.
Similar to the zoo. There's a lot of people in Dubbo have never been to the zoo, I suppose.
Hey, over the years you must have met some characters.
Yeah, there's been a lot of characters here for a long time. And there's one thing about the sale yards, they always know everything that's going on. And if there's something happens tonight, you can bet your socks at daylight tomorrow morning somebody's got something to say about it, and they've made up a yarn about it. Yeah.
Lovely.